Madame Lagarde is concerned about the global economy. Is she right about the economic fallout from the war in Iran more likely to be felt longer than shorter, as US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has indicated? What's your view on this?
So, Carol, thanks again for having me. I think she's absolutely right. And I'm particularly concerned for those countries that have K-shaped economies that are even more distorted than the United States. What we know is that this is a crisis that is hitting those at the bottom disproportionately. Today, it can be felt in terms of energy, but we know that as energy prices rise, fertilizer prices go along with it, which means that food prices will be next. And one of the things that I pay very close attention to is the ability of those at the bottom to feed themselves. And we know that that's a growing issue, and I would hate to see a repeat of the Arab Spring.
You know what?
We're going to talk food prices with Stu Leonard, right?
Yeah, Stu Leonard's going to be joining us in a few minutes, and what he's going to talk to us about is what he's seeing at his grocery stores in the Northeast of the United States. And I wonder, Peter, how what we saw with the Arab Spring and a K-shaped economy in other countries, how you think about that in the context of the U.S. and the U.S.'s K-shaped economy, and the fact that there are so many people in the United States who are struggling to get by, and what happens if we see prolonged higher energy prices for longer?
Yeah, last November, Tim, the headlines were all about an affordability crisis. That crisis hasn't gone away. In fact, it's only gotten worse. And we've seen that in terms of individuals choosing, because they can't afford healthcare, to go without it. And now they're paying more at the pump. And there comes a point at which those at the bottom can't resolve the financial crisis that they face. I think if the word of the year for 2025 was uncertainty, the word of the year for 2026 increasingly is powerlessness. And that's what those at the bottom are experiencing. And I don't think that those above have any clear sense of the challenge that those at the bottom now face in the United States. And I think that it's not about putting off a vacation, which some of the media suggests is the choice that's being made. No, it's a question of what can I afford? Can I afford to put food on the table tonight?
And can I just say that was a post of yours on X that caught my attention. It was a headline: as gas prices approach $4 a gallon. We're there right now. Americans rethink vacations. And you said specifically, and this is something, Tim, that really just caught my attention from Peter, is that, those on the arm of the case, you've really spent some time with those at the bottom. There's this real disconnect in people understanding everything.
Why is bridging that disconnect so important? And not just important because of in your view, of the society that we live in, but what's the economic argument, the economic case for understanding what happens in another person's shoes?
Well, I think particularly in this economy, I don't think those above truly appreciate the dependence that they now have on those at the bottom. In an economy where everything is delivered, where everything is prepared by others, I think that we live in a Downton Abbey economy where those above don't see what's happening below. And they don't appreciate every element of their condition is dependent on a growing population that is invisible.
It's interesting, and we've got a live chat, and one of our producers, Cece, sharing with us some information, and it had to do with comments, Peter, that Jamie Dimon said earlier. And forgive us because I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but kind of this idea that, yep, gas prices are higher, but people still have jobs and they have money to spend. Is that again kind of, and forgive me, I don't have the exact quote, so I don't want to get anybody in trouble or get me in trouble because of Jamie Dimon. But I mean, that idea that, okay, you might be working, but it's just not enough.
It's not enough. And appreciate, again, those at the bottom have no choice but to go to their job. There is no work from home alternative. And so the impact is immediate, and it's also visible. I can't emphasize enough the kryptonite-like impact that rising gas prices have on those at the bottom, that these big billboards that they pass every day has a really pernicious effect.
Does it matter What if President Trump comes out at 5 o'clock, Peter, and says, okay, the war's over? Does things change dramatically for people in America, and especially those where those higher gas prices really do have an impact?
So it may change in the short run to the extent that the markets now respond. I mean, one of the things we've seen is almost a minute by minute correlation between market prices and prices at the pump. And so we could see some short-term improvement, and that would certainly be wonderful to see. But the rat is now in the snake, and we haven't seen how that flows through, how higher oil prices and shortages of certain crude commodities now flows through the system. And as that happens, I think people will be surprised that the cost of living increase isn't temporary, but plays out over a much longer period of time.
Yeah, barrel of Brent still $104 a barrel. Crude, WTI crude, the U.S. benchmark, still over $100 a barrel. Yet the S&P 500 up 2.5%, the NASDAQ composite up 3.4% today. We're seeing really the risk-on rally. Would you be buying U.S. stocks right now?
No, and the reason I wouldn't be buying is I don't think yet that investors have fully appreciated what I think is today the biggest consequence of the war. And that is the degree to which America will be blamed by others around the globe for a much higher cost of living. And I worry about the implications to American businesses that operate globally. I worry about what this means for American tourists. I think that we have unknowingly created a moment where there's a lot that America can and will be blamed for that is in no way reflected in current market prices.